Well, hello there again, friends. Today is 4/21/2022, and today is the Odin Project Vlog Day 95. Today will probably be a short video. I'm going to go over number 5 here is what I completed, and then we'll go over the JavaScript required for it, and then show you the CSS in the browser. That seems to work out pretty well. The number 5, it says add a button to each book's library to remove the book from the library. Sub A says you'll need to associate your DOM elements with the actual book objects in some way. One easy solution is giving them a data attribute that corresponds to the index of the library array. So, this one was interesting. So, it took me a while to upload, and I'm sorry, excuse me, Tourette's is active. Sorry it took me a little bit to get this video out. It was one of those things where I went 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 forward, 1 back, took breaks, came back, never gave up, staying consistent to the keyboard as I type to you guys all the time in the comments section, ask for advice and how long I take and how long I study each night. Staying consistent is how you stay in the game. So with that said, let's just get right into the editor. So the HTML, there's nothing changed here. It's the same as the last video because everything that I'm doing it with the way I'm doing it anyway, is in DOM manipulation within the class books div. So that's why you don't see anything there, because it's all done in DOM manipulation magic on JavaScript. So let's hit that up. So there's a bit of refactoring here. So I'm going to kind of take you from the top for things that I changed. So none of this changed. Trying to think of a good place to start here. Yeah, we'll start inside the for each loop. So we had this before. This isn't anything new. Although I did add I added a variable called index equals 0, and that'll be how we track our. That's how I track my. Decided to track my index links for the buttons, and we'll go over that in a minute. That'll help the JavaScript in the browser to know which array item or which array object to delete when it's clicked. So it'll look to that data element, that data attribute element that we'll add here in a minute. So we come down here, and here's starts the new part inside of this for each. We're going to create a book, create remove book button, and add class attributes for each card array. So we start with a constant variable called remove book button, and it takes on document.create element button. And so that's just simply as a sound. We're creating a button, and we're calling it remove book button, and then we're setting, in the next one we're setting its class list to remove book button, so we can use CSS against it. And then the next one we have remove book button dot text contents equals remove from library, and this is just the text that will appear on the button. And then I have some console logs sprinkled in here just for diagnostic purposes. And there's one here, show me the current array objects inside the side of for each, and I'm just printing that out. And I will say I forgot, I did change my libraries. In the last video it just said my library, and I think I had a typo. So with having the exact same name as the for each, I found out through a chain of events that made me want to pull my hair out if I had hair, is I was unable to access my array from inside of here, which was weird because I'm like calling the array. And I'm like, how can I call the array but I can't access the array? So once I changed this to just put an S on the end and change the for each so that it's looping through and calling a function that, or calling a parameter that's not the same name as the array, that fixed it. So anyway, we're going down here. So we just do a console log there, and then the next section is we link the data attribute of the remove button to the array and card. So we do that by setting remove book button dot dataset dot linked array to equal the value of index, which, as you can see, there's better ways to do it. Probably this is just found a typo. This is just the way I did it. Excuse me. So I start the index out to be 0 before I enter the for each loop, and then I set it here. So it's coming in for the first time on the very first array item, array object as 0 for an index, since I declared it as 0 up here. And so its linked array is going to be 0, and then it's going to increment, and then we're going to console.log out, show me the data set linked back to the array, and it's just printing out the linked array so I can make sure that it's setting correctly. And linked array is a string. It only can take a string. So you'll see down here I have to parse in it to an integer to make it work when I'm accessing and splicing the array. So then we have down here card. We'll go over that in a second. So we have card.append child remove book button. So here's where we're appending all this. We're appending the book button to card. So now we're going to have a card that pops up, and then a remove book button that's going to appear on it. Well, through the CSS and grid, it'll be at the bottom of the card because of the grid. So we have the second section here: start event listener, remove array item from array and card from parent div via data link. That's a lot of mouthful there, but here we go. So we have remove book button dot. We're going to add an event listener for click, and we're going to call remove book library when that click happens. And here's remove book library. So we're going to declare a variable called retrieve book remove. Retrieve book to remove, excuse me, and it's going to take on the value of remove book button dot dataset dot linked array. So it's still a string here, therefore it's going to be a string here. So all we're doing here is simply taking the linked array item from that particular click on that particular ID button, and we're setting it to this variable so we can use it here in a minute. And we're console.logging, attempting to remove array item via data attribute. And then here's where I start having to get a little kung fu-y. I used parseInt. There may be better ways to do it. This is just the way I did it. And again, my way isn't the best way. It's just a way. So I take the contents of retrieve book to remove, and I parse in it to turn it into an integer from a string. And then after that, I call my library .splice, and then so .splice takes a integer value, comma. Actually, it takes a lot more than that, but you at least have to have a integer value, comma, and then an integer value. And the first integer value is if you remember in splice, is the item. It doesn't have to be an integer. I guess it could be a string as well. But it's the index or item or string that you want to remove from your given array, and then the comma second integer. This would be how many, the quantity. So I only want to remove one always. So what this says is basically go into my library, splice out the parse integer. So we're going to get the integer of retrieve book to remove. So we're just pulling down that string and we're converting it to an integer, and then we're saying splice that. So take that out. So say if this was 0 as the example above, so we're going to have 0, 1, which means we're going to go into my library, take out whatever is at whatever object is at index 0 and remove it. And then we're going to then do card.remove to remove the card, and that will remove it from the screen, so it'll disappear on us, so it's nice and responsive. And then the last line here is we're going to call display book on page with no arguments. And I think the rest of it here is same from last video. I might have added a few comments in things to make things, yeah. So I knew what things were doing, but yeah, nothing more was added. So then we call display book on page, and that goes right back up here and starts over. And we do that, or I do that, because I need it to re-loop over the array, because when I delete, and when I click on an item to delete it from the array is no longer synced up correctly with the after the first click, because when you remove it, if you don't have it loop over, you have to sync it with something, basically, because if you don't, after the first removal, your index values will be re-indexed via the splice method, but they won't be in the DOM elements, if that makes sense. So the linked attribute on the data attribute within the remove button attributes will be incorrect. It'll call the wrong. It's hard to explain it. I'll show you. It'll make more sense, but it'll call the wrong card, basically, because it doesn't know any better. So that's why I call this function. So it runs through everything all over again. It clears out the cards as per how I had it set from last video, and then it loops over everything again, resetting index to 0, and loops through the current number of items in the array via the myLibrary.forEach, and goes through this entire block of code over again, and once this is invoked. So hope that kind of made sense. I kind of ran in circles on that, but anyway, doing good on time. Let's hit the editor, or not the editor, the browser, and show you how this works. So I got the counts up here so we can see some of that council activity, so we can see what's going on. Excuse me. I'm going to just do some dummy data here. And I'm tabbing and then hitting enter to submit to library. You just don't see the mouse moving, but submit to library. There's our first card, and you see comes up with removed from a library. So looking in the console here, says show me some of the stuff's old. I won't go over it again. This stuff's existing, nothing new. Actually, I think this might be new, but this show me the current array of objects inside the for loop. So I just want to know. Wanted to know at that point in time. I just didn't comment it out, just to see what the array was showing and make sure it was looping through correctly, which it is. So it captured that. And that's just show me the data set to link back to the array, which is well, that's a string, but it will be, as I told you, it'll be parsed into an integer. So it's got a 0 for the index. So if we do it again for 1, does it again, and the array is updated. So you got a index of 1 title, 1 author, 1 page. So that updated the card 2 is there. And then it says, show me the data set linked back to the array. So now we have a link of a value of 1. And that'll come into play here in a minute. So if we go look at the inspector here, we have 2 card items. And this is all through DOM manipulation. We have that button class we added through the JavaScript. And here's that data-link-array. So in HTML, everything, data dash is basically how it starts itself out, and then linked array, if you remember, is what we called it. But the HTML converts it to dashes. So that's why it looks funky the way it does. But it's nevertheless it does work good, and it's got that pink look tone to it. Excuse me. So we know that's got the item of excuse me, I cannot talk tonight. That has the value of 0 and that will represent index 0, and here's index 1 for the next button, and all that other stuff we went through in the last video. And so there's that. So When you hit remove from array or remove from library, it removes it. And then it does read out some things here. So it says attempting to remove array via data attribute, and this is green because it's now parse inted. That's the line that parse ints. That's invoking the console log right here. So we're parse inting at this point. Didn't really need to do that there. I was just testing parse int out to make sure it was doing what I thought it was doing, which it is. And that's why it shows up as green here. So we're calling and attempting to remove basically index 0. And then show me the node count. Okay, I've been through that. Show me the arrays. Been through that. So here we can see that well, now it's the current 0. See how it shifted. So title 1 card is now 0, but before we had to remove library on 0, so that's now been removed, and the array has shifted. See, that's why I was saying earlier, I was kind of hard to explain in words, but see how the array has been reshuffled. When you remove it, it's going to move it up 1. So title 1 card is now at array index 0. So you have to resync it, and the way I do it is rerunning the for each loop. So show me the data set, link back to the array is 0, and that's that. So if we do my library here and show the live contents, again, you'll just see the, we already kind of printed it up here, but you see it here, we now have title 1, which is the only card left, shifted to from object 1, or from, I keep saying that, sorry, index 1 to index 0. So we have to update, and by clicking that, remember we called the function to rerun again. So now if we look at our div here, see our data linked array is 0. That was 1. So that's how I intuitively got around the syncing issue, is I just recalled. So basically that block of code is called and ran both when you click the remove from library button and also when you submit to library. It's just running it, both times, because I had that, like I said, I had the syncing issue when I first was setting this up. So now if you see remove from library, bam, it's gone. The DOM is gone. DOM has been updated. They manipulated it with JavaScript to remove it, and we go here and we see attempt to remove array item via data attribute. No, again, it's going to go to index 0, and my array, or my library, should be empty, an empty array, and it is. So that is how that works. Let's go over the CSS real quick. Get this to come up again. Okay, so the CSS for this button here is, I believe, oops, I clicked it. I clicked the button. Okay, let's try this again. Alright. Just to round this off, can't really see it, but there's a button right there. So we go here, remove the button. So it's got a grid row of 5, 6. It's got a font weight of 900, and that makes the font nice and dark. Let's see if we can scroll it down a little bit. There we go. And then background, let's turn this off here. The background color is red. As you see, border radius 10 pixels, makes it smoothens out the corners a little bit. And I have inheritance for the color in the text align center as well, inheriting from book set card. And then the so row 5, 6 is what it sounds like. So if I turn on the grid, where's my grid for? There we go. So there's, you see the purple lines for the grid for the card. So when I turn that on, this is a child, a grid item of the grid that's sitting on card. So grid row 5, 6 puts it. So if you don't have this at all, it pushes it to the top. So I could have had it at the top, but it didn't look right. I wanted to have it at the bottom. So grid row 5-6 will put it at the bottom, because if you turn your lines on, your line numbers here on the card, why is that not turning on? Anyway, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's why we have 5 to 6 declared here, and that pushes it all the way down at the bottom. And it looks weird having it that wide, but it doesn't when you start, since it's responsive. When you start adding in more cards, it starts to look normal. You know, it's like that, and it'll only go 4 wide, and then as we've looked at before, then it'll go down to the next next row as per the grid column and row templates. Just so you can see how it goes back down here, and then if you shrink the card or shrink the screen or change the resolution, it will respond like that. So it looks pretty good. Not bad for using raw, vanilla HTML and vanilla CSS and vanilla JavaScript without any React. So I like it. I think it looks good. So I won't babble any more there. I've covered all the main things for this I wanted to cover today. So I hope you enjoyed the journey with me today and learned a little bit along the way. Please like, share, and subscribe for more content. And let me know in the comments section how you're doing with this project library application for JavaScript. So with all that said, till next time, see ya.